online. He likes
Moved online and so that way you can see it on there. Okay. Yeah.
recording in progress. I will call this meeting to order. And request a roll call.
Great, Commissioner Foister?
Here.
Commissioner Nelson is unfortunately no longer with us. Commissioner Lisk?
Here.
Commissioner Petroselli?
Present.
Commissioner Meyer?
Here.
Mayor Clark?
Here.
And Chairperson Montague?
Here. I would like to start with a moment of silent reflection in honor of Jennifer Nelson. Thank you. I wish that I had some eloquent thoughts to share, but I still am just baffled by the whole thing. And I'm really sad that she isn't with us. And I think it was really lovely to put those flowers there. Thank you.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Angie is a beautiful flower arranger, and we kind of came up with that idea together.
That was your idea, Joe.
Thanks.
It's really nice.
Thanks for doing that. I'm gonna miss her smile. Miss her all the way around.
I guess we're doing a selection of officers.
Excuse me. Well,
Yes. Sorry for the last minute addition to the agenda, but.
You don't need to apologize.
Okay,
Thank you for catching up.
well, they expired November 1st, chair and vice chair. So this is really the most appropriate time to conduct this selection. And the suggested process is on the screen now. It's left in your packet. And the suggestion is to start with the chairperson role. So,
I nominate Michelle as the chairperson.
second,
Yep. Do we vote?
are there any other
If there's
nominations?
any other nominations.
That came so quick, I missed who.
Michelle, I'm nominating.
Jack nominated and Pam seconded, and
I move to accept the nomination by acclamation. We can second that one.
Yep. Second that. You got a yellow on the far left?
Yes.
The yellow.
So just.
all in favor?
Yep.
Anyone opposed?
Nay, I'm sorry.
I appreciate all of your confidence in me, and we'll try to continue to do an even better job. Thank you, congrats,
Yeah, you're welcome. Doing a great job.
thanks. And then
Are you willing to stay
the,
on as vice chair?
You know, if anybody else would rather do it, I'd be happy to. My abilities to herd cats when necessary are diminishing each year. But yeah, I'm fine if someone else doesn't want it.
Quick thing, we don't have any public online, but the suggestion does include public comment. You should want to.
Oh,
All we have is Eva, who is being introduced tonight, so I'm sure she's not on here to comment on who's the chair. and vice chair.
Okay. Well, I'll open
know
up
if
to
it's necessary.
public comment if anyone's there. Ross, are you interested in being vice chair?
I can, true.
You wanna be off the hook?
I'm delighted to be up.
I nominate Russ as the vice chair.
a second.
Do you wanna say that?
Acclamation again.
Sure, I move that we accept the nomination by acclamation.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? There, we have,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I rarely go anywhere, Ross, so you may not be called on a lot, but it's possible.
That's okay.
I just like to be right here in Ridgway. The next item is, I have to go back to my agenda, I was looking at the item. The next item is housing updates. It'll be a work session, housing updates. I'll just read through all four of them. A 2025 Regional Housing Needs Assessment, B Prop 123 updates, C introduction of Eva Henson, Regional Housing Services Administrator, and D Affordable Housing Regulations RMC 7-7 and Guidelines Update. And I will hand it over to our esteemed senior planner, Angela Kemp.
Well, thank you. So item number 2 contains a lot of housing related updates. Not everything included in my presentation is in your packet. So if you want to turn your attention to the presentation for this item, that would be the best. So first, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment is wrapping up, and if anyone's interested in the most up-to-date version, please email me because I can send you that. There's still like a full design copy that is going to be produced after we have this meeting tomorrow, the public presentation at 6 p.m. If there's any, comments or significant changes that come out of those conversations there, they will make those updates and then put them into a final design version for us. And that will be what's submitted for adoption consideration. I hope everyone can attend. And also, if you're planning to attend via Zoom, please email me and let me know so I can send you the Zoom link because it's not posted anywhere. Yes.
How long do you think that presentation will be tomorrow? I know it's a 2-hour meeting. They're gonna present for half hour, an hour, and then it's gonna be public comment.
They sent me their slides today and they're pretty thorough. There's a lot on there, so I'm not totally sure. But there's definitely going to be some room at the end for like questions and. But I don't think the presentation is gonna go till 8, if that's what you're.
No, I assume that there'd be some questions and answers and mingling afterwards, but I was just wondering if it was gonna be a 15-minute presentation or an hour presentation. I need to know how much copy.
45 to an hour sounds reasonable to me, but it could be longer. We're gonna try to have everyone save their questions till the end. Because I think that makes for a shorter presentation, so they don't have to pause and jump around. But yeah, I don't know for sure. Anyways, I'm really happy with how this process has gone and it's on track to wrap up by the end of the year, which is very exciting. I have on here that December 10th is when it's aiming to be on the town council agenda for consideration for adoption.
And that's not a thing where they have to hear it once and then adopt
Yeah.
it the next time?
Yeah, it's not like a codified thing, so it's not via ordinance.
Okay.
So there's no ordinance process to follow. Okay, and the second update related to housing is that this month at the town council meeting, town council adopted resolution 2025-10, establishing expedited review policies for affordable housing projects in the town of Ridgway. So I brought this to town council last week at the regular meeting, and the resolution's purpose is to formalize the town's commitment to a timely review for qualified affordable housing projects under Prop 123. And Ridgway already has a review timeline that's conducive to meeting the requirements, which are on this slide. So it was really just formalizing what's already in place. But a qualifying project is something that contains 50% or more of affordable housing per the statutory definition of affordable. And so that's 60% AMI or below for rental and 100% AMI or below for purchase or ownership opportunity. So we aren't seeing any of those types of development.
So
Anyway,
that's a state requirement, the 60% AR
yeah, that's the state's definition of
for the.
affordable housing.
So.
And I know you don't have the chart in front of you, but can you rattle off to me what 100% of our AMI is, or I can wait till tonight?
72, 72 for a 3-person household, I want to say.
Thank you.
I love that. I presented some numbers to town council too, to just kind of explain how far off the state is from what we're actually seeing. So I think one of the things that really summed it up was I gave an example that for ownership at 100% AMI, it's like $330,000 for a 3-person household to be able to afford that home.
About a lot.
It's $500,000 short. No, it's maybe an
Yeah.
exaggeration, but.
I don't think you exaggerated.
So what the housing needs assessment said it was average. We had to do 140, 160 AMI to afford a house in Ridgway, typically.
Something like that, that's right, yeah.
Yes, at the lead.
It's
Yeah.
pretty daunting, which is what we'll hear in the report tomorrow night.
Yeah,
Like how do we solve this problem?
Well, it's a statewide problem too.
So we're not gonna solve it with 60% AMI housing. So you guys are to create 100% AMI.
so one of the purposes for getting this resolution adopted is so that we can, it's a piece of our compliance for Prop 123. And also there's an early incentive for adopting it early, so we're about a year ahead of when it's required. And there's a $50,000 incentive from DOLA that can be used for anything that the local planning capacity grant is used for, which includes master plan updates. So we have grant funding for the housing action plan, and then hopefully we can use this for the master plan.
Thank you for being so ahead of the deadline on this. And is there an opportunity to give the state feedback about the 60% being pretty ridiculous?
Yes, and I think they're getting a lot of feedback from a lot of communities.
Well,
Yes,
Can we have a discussion about this? Is this appropriate?
Sure.
I mean, for me, it feels so disconnected. I mean, the AMI in poorer counties like Park County or counties on the eastern side of the state, their AMI is lower. So when you have 60% of like a agricultural type AMI as opposed to our AMI, it seems like it's self-adjusting. Am I misinterpreting that?
no, that's right.
So why would you only do 60%? I don't understand that.
I
mean, it
guess
seems
because
like-
what they're saying is the AMI is the average, right? So there's people making more than that, but there's people making less than that.
The
And so they're
AMI is
trying
the
to be
median.
inclusive.
Yeah, but
AMI is the median, it's the middle number, so if
I don't agree with it, Jack. I'm just saying
No, I'm-
I see where they're coming from.
I'm trying to reconcile it, so I need y'all's help to help me reconcile it. I mean, for
So
me,
let's look at the 100% because the 60% is for rental and it's maybe a little bit, I don't know. That's a little bit confusing because people have their different reasons for renting something at a more affordable rate. But ownership is like kind of a little more easy to understand. And if we look at the 100% AMI, it is the middle number. So that means that half of the population of Ridgway is making more than that number and half is making less than that.
Well, I think the important thing to note is that it's about the fact that to be affordable, the general cost, whether it's rent or mortgage,
shouldn't be more than 30% of the monthly income. That's the thing to focus on. Don't worry about what, because the AMI is that's like you say, it varies by where you live. But as long as, and I think what they're saying is that in terms of rental, you do a needs assessment, rents are so high that it has to be 60% of AMI to meet that 30% goal.
Yeah,
That's where
I understand what you're saying, I just, what I'm having trouble reconciling is let's assume that we have an AMI in this county of $75,000. If you go to an agricultural town in eastern part of Colorado, it's probably half of that, 2/3 of that. And yeah, 100% AMI, they can't afford to buy or build and rent anything. I mean, it seems like the rental segment is what we need, and it's being punished through this process, and that doesn't seem right, but.
how's it being punished?
Well, it's because it's only 60% of it, they should, I think we should encourage movements by giving them more opportunity. Is my point, because we need rentals, it's gonna be hard enough to get for sale product, but it's gonna be real hard to get rental.
So the state is kind of focusing on where the needs are
Yeah,
and maybe not being realistic for like what's happening here. So I don't know how that gets remedied really.
I don't either, I was hoping you guys had a quick fix for it.
But you do want to start math. You say, if we say 75,000, let's see if I can pull this off. 60% of that times 0.6 is 45,000, and then 1/3 of that should be for monthly income, so that's 15,000, so their rent would be 12, less than $1,000.
$1,200 a month maybe.
Yeah.
I'm renting a 1-bedroom apartment that I own in Ridgway for $1,500, so I'm not that far off. I mean, it's doable, but it's hard to do it. You know, to create a new apartment in Ridgway for $1,200 or $1,500 a month is almost impossible.
What this statute does is it creates funding to help make these things happen. You're doing it without any assistance right now. This thing makes it possible for people to get assistance.
No, that helps. I mean, now I understand.
Yeah, 1,125, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Is everybody good with me moving on a little bit?
Yeah,
Okay, I was gonna give some background on this particular resolution. There's some guidance from the state that they've published, so it was actually fairly easy to do. They also have a lot of examples of other communities that have already adopted a fast track program or resolution. And they have best practices for how to shrink review timelines. So staff is kind of consistently looking at that and figuring out where we can build in efficiencies in our process. But also still be thorough. So these are two of our flowcharts for pretty typical reviews that need to happen for any of these kinds of qualifying developments. So conditional use permit and the site plan process. Conditional use is a planning commission decision, and then site plan is planning commission recommendation to town council for decision. These can also be concurrent reviews, and town is really good about stacking processes so that things can be reviewed concurrently. Even though technically the 90-day requirement allows us to do it in 2 90-day cycles, but we want to show our support for good development.
which we did with Weatherwater.
Before my time, but that's my understanding. So the next step is that I will submit the resolution to the Department of Local Affairs for verification that it meets all the statutory requirements and makes Ridgway eligible for that early adoption incentive, and then apply for that maximum award amount of $50,000. And then it is anticipated, we talked about it in the budget cycle, that $50,000 goes toward the 2026 master plan update, which is also on our agenda to talk about a little bit tonight. And then Eva is my third housing update. Eva, if you don't mind coming online, and I'm gonna actually stop sharing my screen so everybody can see you. Let's see, how do I do this?
We can see.
Okay. So Eva just started with, not just, but a few weeks ago, right? Or has it been?
We're in
months?
week 6. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
So Eva is our Regional Housing Services Administrator. We are so lucky to have her because she has a lot of housing experience and expertise. And she's really hit the ground running. So I'm going to actually just pass it over to you, Eva, to kind of talk about your role if you want to, and just say hello to everyone here in the room. And I don't know if you got everyone's names, but I'm sure you all will meet at some point in time.
Yes, my goal is to eventually be there in person. I'm not that far away. I am in Durango, and I have come over a couple of times over the past to come visit and in person, and certainly with weather cooperating, plan to come more often when it's not winter. Traction over the pass. So again, I'm the new Housing Services Director with Home Trust of Uray County. I started on October 14th. So I've spent the past several weeks getting acquainted with staff, reviewing existing policies and programs, examining agreements and community plans, and gathering lots of data from a variety of places regarding the below market housing inventory in Uray County. I'm excited to be on board and working with the town of Ridgway, the city of Uray, and Uray County on this effort through Home Trust's expanded role as the countywide housing services administrator. This work is made possible through a Department of Local Affairs local planning capacity grant. So there's an intergovernmental agreement for that collaborative framework. With that, Home Trust will provide support, capacity, and program management across all 3 jurisdictions, helping to expand access to affordable and attainable housing. The goal is to provide and serve as a one-stop shop, assisting residents, local governments, and community partners in navigating housing programs, managing deed-restricted properties, and coordinating housing initiatives collaboratively. My role and primary focus is deed restriction administration, intergovernmental liaison. So I'll be working with all 3 government partners, including Planning Commission, depending on what the topic and objective is, program development and administration, financial management and reporting, residential support services, stakeholder collaboration, and Proposition 123 compliance, to name a few things. And really looking forward to getting to know you all a little bit more. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself to you, and happy to share my contact information if you'd like that, or through Angie, we can provide that to you all with my email and work phone.
All right, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Will you take over the management of the Wetterhorn deed restriction, or will that continue to be done separately?
Yeah, happy to address that. So I am working in a transition with Impact Development Services, who's primarily been the administrator with Rural Homes. In fact, I'm working with them later this week on a transition plan through the end of the year. Their objective is to be completed, and we'll have all the files electronically transferred over to Home Trust, and then I'll be the primary liaison in person overseeing Wetterhorn and Waterview developments among the other units that are available.
That's great.
Cool.
She's got a lot of knowledge about best practices that I'm really hoping can stick here.
Yeah, we had an issue with that where they came to, I guess the town council sits as the housing board for Ridgway, and some residents did some upgrades but didn't get pre-approval on it because they didn't know. And so it was kind of tricky. So it might be good when you take over to maybe re-notify everybody like, hey, remember, this is the process. If you're doing any upgrades, be sure to get them pre-approved if you want them added to your, property value. And I'm guessing that people know now because that happened, but it's probably always a good reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that suggestion. I will certainly add that to part of my communication when I reach out in January. Impact Development Services kind of notified all the homeowners with a letter that just states that I'll be the point of contact. And then I planned on in January, certainly reaching out. And capital improvements, yeah, it's tricky. And the deed restrictions back in the early 2000s. That was what the first unit I ever purchased was back in 2006 when I lived in Summit County, Colorado for the last almost 20 years before moving down here. We didn't have capital improvements back then. And so certainly a good reminder that these covenants can evolve and also corresponding with the actual residents on what that entails. And the key piece, like you mentioned, with the lesson learned is getting those pre-approved before you purchase or do any work in advance to make sure that that can be part of your max resale price calculation.
Great.
Cool.
Happy to have you.
Yeah,
I'm over the moon. Thank you so much for hopping on, Eva. I know you have family things to do, so you're welcome to leave at any point. We are talking about a couple more housing topics, but I will keep you in the loop.
I'll stay on for a little bit and listen in. Yeah,
Okay.
and then I'll say goodnight. Okay.
Great, thanks for being here.
yeah, thank you.
Yay. Okay. So everybody has seen this timeline time and time again. Let me try to scoot this over. So this was the timeline for 2025 housing things, and there's a lot of housing things going on, as we all know. Not much has changed from this, except the chapter 7, section 7, affordable housing regulations and the guidelines adoption. We had expected that to be in place at some point in 2025. And then adjusting it based on the housing needs assessment and aligning it with Prop 123 and whatever we find out in the housing needs assessment. That hasn't happened, so I have a modified timeline for 2026 now. It includes the housing needs assessment being adopted by the end of the year, 2025. Assessing our Prop 123 commitment, which is underway. Eva has been really helpful in that because there's a lot of just stuff to sort through with the state and like figuring out exactly what documentation. First of all, figuring out what units would help us meet the commitment, and then figuring out the documentation to confirm that is a lot of what we're working through now. And we are taking a regional approach to meeting the Prop 123 commitment. If everyone remembers, we have an IGA with the city and the county. So any extra units that the city produces can be split between us and the county. That's extra units beyond what they committed to. So right now they are on track to have extra.
Is the RRC 77 guidelines adoption that affordable housing section that we worked through that we presented to council?
Yes.
And they wanted us to do more public outreach and da 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 da.
Yep.
And you still feel we can get that approved by the end of this year?
No, I have it on here as early
Early
2026.
Okay.
To do some additional outreach, which right now is anticipated for January.
Okay.
But, I guess it's somewhat helpful that it hasn't gone through yet because we have Eva now looking at it. And she's gonna be administering all the deed restrictions that this, creates. So I wanna make sure that we have a template deed restriction that's really satisfactory and helpful for her in her role. And then we'll also have all the information from the housing needs assessment that can inform 7.7 in the guidelines. So I was gonna run over like a little bit of it, like how it works in practice in my presentation tonight. Give you some examples of like how the regulations would apply to actual developments. And I was hoping that could be like, you guys could tell me if it makes sense to you or if I need to sort of modify how I'm presenting that, because I think that is what we would bring to the public to showcase like how it actually works. Along with just, some of the data that we shared before in the community conversation.
And would our deed restriction look similar to the Waterhorn? It would have a price cap, an inflation percentage cap.
Right now, we do have a template deed restriction that's been drafted. It hasn't been adopted or anything like that, or really formalized in any sort of way. But yes, it includes local Uray County employment, or they can be retired from a local employer earning the majority of their income in Uray County. It has an appreciation cap. It has certain AMI targets based on whether it's an ownership unit or a rental unit.
Primary
Yeah.
residency.
It seems to make the
Primary
most sense.
residency,
I
no
know
short-term rentals.
people are leery about getting into, the price cap on increase, but I know San Miguel County did not do a price cap because they felt that back in the day that market would create its own market. And, that didn't really happen. And so it was affordable for the first time around, maybe somewhat the second time around, and now it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it seems like a necessary thing.
That's some whole day right after that.
So this timeline talks about that process again, and there's gonna be some minor tweaks to what you all approved or recommended approval for, so we would bring it back to your commission for the text amendment. And then it needs to go to town council for first reading and town council for second reading, and that's a public hearing. So a typical ordinance process.
That's great. So it'll be more of a document that someone's gonna actively use and work with. That's what the improvements are gonna be, right? Is what you're saying? With Eva's help, they'll be more functional.
Yeah,
Like this is how we'll apply this.
Yeah.
And we get to see it.
oh yeah.
That's great.
Okay, so hopefully that helps give you a little bit of an update on like why that's been so delayed, and we haven't talked about it in a while.
And we're still way ahead of the deadline.
Well, the 7-7 and guidelines is something that was put in our strategic plan. It doesn't have to do with the state requirements at all.
Oh,
It's just a Ridgway specific thing. We wanted to include affordable housing regulations in the code for a couple of years now, I guess, and that's, you guys started the process with TJ, CPS and his team, and talked through like what those regulations could be. And if you remember, there was like mitigation, we talked about commercial, we talked about industrial, we talked about like how we want to approach it. And so we landed on this, essentially it's an inclusionary zoning policy, and it's only for residential development and triggered at 3 or more units. It's pretty minimal, but we can look at some of the outcomes of like how it actually gets applied. And then I would be open to hearing any feedback on like if you think things need to be tweaked based on that. And what you've read in the housing needs assessment draft. So I have on here the timeline, including the housing action plan as well, and that's a local, so that's Ridgway specific housing action plan. We do have that funding for the plan and through the HPLN grant that also funded the housing needs assessment. And we will need to do a competitive bid process. So we're planning on issuing an RFP in January and then kicking off soon after. And it's gonna have to align with DOLA's published guidance, which is a 79-page document. I just keep reiterating that because the guidance was published after we got the grant award. So we don't exactly know what consultants are gonna bid. Because the guidance is a lot more involved than I think we anticipated. So just something to be aware of. End of year goals, the Prop 123 unit counts will need to be submitted before December 1st. And so again, that's regional counts to show that we are meeting our commitment. And
That's
right,
end of year 26.
end of year 26, yep. Or December 1st, 26.
Right.
And then the housing action plan completed and implementation can begin with the 2027 budget cycle. And also RMC 77 and the guidelines would be in place by then and ready to be assessed for effectiveness. So we can kind of identify if any modifications need to be planned for 2026. Because if you remember, the guidelines are not codified. They need to be updated every year because the AMI chart gets updated every year in like May-ish. So if there's anything that needs to be tweaked in that document, it's really easy to do that all at the same time yearly. So we can look at that. And then if you guys are okay with it, I was gonna give you a very short recap on what's in those guidelines and regulations. Community housing will be defined in those guidelines and regulations. We already talked about area median income today, so I'll skip forward. And if you remember, the regulations again are the codified piece. The guidelines are separate and they have a little more detail about how to apply the regulations. And there's like some more specification in there. So the requirement is 10% of units or lots must be dedicated as community housing, which includes a deed restriction on those units or lots. Right now, the target that we set is 140% AMI for ownership and 100% AMI for rental. So the housing needs assessment could maybe indicate that those numbers need to change. And it's applicable to market rate residential development of 3 or more units or lots. There's multiple ways to comply, but the main piece for you all to note is that there's a new submittal requirement. It's called a community housing plan. And it's the applicant's responsibility to explain how the project complies with the regulations. Or if it's exempt, why is it exempt? Or if they want to use multiple means of compliance instead of standard compliance, they can mix in some of the alternative means of compliance that are in the materials and come up with a package that's suitable for their pro forma and present that to us.
I like that.
They can also ask for incentives if they're exceeding the requirements in that community housing plan. So that's like a pivotal piece of like how we're gonna actually review these things. All right. So let's look at some examples that I put together for you. Townhome plat example. Again, there's some requirements to be aware of, like where it's not allowed in certain zoning districts. A conditional use permit is probably required depending on the size of the building and the zone. And then a site plan is required. So I have this set up in a way where on the far left, there's like the number of units created with the development example. So starting at the top, a 6-unit townhome development triggers compliance because it's over 3 units. Compliance is 10% resulting in the fractional requirement of 0.6 or 60%. 60% of 1 unit, sorry. And then the regulations state that fractional requirements can be met via a fee in lieu. So in this case, the standard compliance and the alternative compliance listed are both fee in lieu, which is 60% of the cost of 1 comparable unit. And that's the developer's cost. So when they pull a building permit, they give us information on how much it's going to cost for them to develop that unit. And so we are taking that, and that's the number we're trusting or using. And obviously we have some understanding of what development costs. So if it's way off, we can flag that. Yes, Jack?
See a flaw in that, is it cost to include the units that include the land?
It includes,
Because the building permit doesn't include the land. So if you build.
right,
So there's a flaw there. So the
yeah,
land's $1 million, the building's $1 million, the building permit's only $1 million. So we need to
I
think
can't
that.
remember how the, I used like the what's it called? Cost. I don't remember how I did
The
it.
building permit's an inaccurate way to establish the cost if you want to.
Right, and this would be before the building permit, because I was just kind of giving you the,
It's not a criticism,
Yes,
it's an idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the full developer cost. I think
we
it
did-
includes
we
land,
did,
infrastructure, I think it's the full it's gotta be.
Yeah,
I mean-
it has to be. When we did this stuff in River Park, the 10 units I did over there, we included the land.
Yeah,
I had to demonstrate the cost of the land included. So
yes,
That was part of the real cost.
right. Yep, I can't remember what it's called right now, but there's like. There was like a few examples I think I brought to you all of like how you can calculate the fee in lieu. And this one seemed most Ridgway aligned to me. But yes, it's the actual full cost. So. There's easy ways to check if it's accurate, ish. I don't know. Right, and then
So,
going down,
another question. So if you had 12 units and you had 1.2 units, you could build one unit and pay a fee in lieu for the 0.2.
so that's the example on the bottom here, 12 units, 1.2. So yes, you wouldn't be able to pay the fee in lieu for the 1.2, you'd be able to pay the fee in lieu for the 0.2.
That's right.
But you have to
Only
still
fraction.
provide the one, yes, exactly. You still have to provide the 1 unit. So the alternative compliance example that I gave for the 12 units here is simply an example that a developer could turn in their community housing plan that says, I'm gonna transfer the title of 2 of the buildable lots within the development to the town so that they can develop community housing. And I put in all of these to the satisfaction of town council. So if town council thinks that's not gonna fly, that's not good enough, then that's how that kind of work shakes out, but. Does that all make sense?
I think it's great.
And then I have a condominium example, it's very similar, the same stuff applies with site plan, conditional use permit, and that it's not allowed in certain zones. So again, fractional requirements are most likely to result in just the fee in lieu dedicated. Someone could supply a full unit instead, and I'll kind of go into that a little bit more with rentals, because I think that'd be more likely for rentals. So here, let's just skip to the 13 unit project. The alternative compliance would be that I included, that would need to be really carefully justified by the applicant, is that they'd be asking for an incentive to supply on-site amenities that exceed the requirements. So let's say the condo building has solar proposed to offset the cost for all residents, the utility costs. Town council could consider that as a fair trade-off for that fractional requirement. And sorry, this is wrong. Then it says 2. It's supposed to be 1.3.
Work.
Apologies.
So that's 1.2.
So 1.3.
Yeah.
So their standard compliance would be building or using one of the units as a community housing unit. And then dedicate or giving the town 30% of the cost of one comparable unit. And that gets paid into a town of Ridgway Affordable Housing Fund. And then for the 20 unit example here, just to give you another idea of alternative compliance, we have an allowance in those regulations that people could supply housing offsite. Sorry, Darla. But they would need to supply 15% as community housing, or there's 3 other situations in which they could supply housing offsite instead of onsite. I can go over those if you're interested. But basically that is another very feasible possibility. And then when I go over these rental apartment examples, I just want to point out that the AMI target is lower here. So rental is at 100% AMI based on how it's drafted currently. Again, a site plan would be required because it's multifamily development. And depending on the size of the building or the zoning district, a conditional use permit may be required as well. So in a rental unit for the for the 8-unit example here, I used, you know, a developer just using one of the units as restricted for community housing instead of paying the 80% of what it costs to develop that unit. Because they're the owner anyway, they're the ones having equity in the building. And so I think it's more likely that folks would just supply the units at the AMI target. I don't know, I would have to like see a pro forma laid out, but I think that's something to consider here.
Another question here.
Yes,
And maybe it's too early to ask this question, but in that 8-unit example, and the developer supplies 1 unit to the community housing program, and he puts the appropriate deed restriction on that, does he have to hire the right housing to manage that deed restriction, or can he do it himself? The next question is, does he have to pay the fee to do that?
right now, it would be the town administering the deed restriction via the home trust of Uray County. Like that's how we're moving forward. So no, they should not be doing it themselves. That's not really the best way to go about it. The fee thing is a really good idea. But I don't know that it's ever, I don't know if that's ever been
But it will.
approached
But it
or
will.
brought up.
Even something.
I mean, it's, yeah, it could be like a pass-through cost. I don't see why not, but
Seems appropriate.
right now, we don't have anything in our fee schedule that would require that. So, very good point. And we can certainly bring that up at some time. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. I wasn't gonna run through all of these examples, but are you following kind of how they're set up, or is it confusing? It's, okay, it's kind of clear. Cool. Oh, the other thing, I guess I'll go through the 12-unit one right now. So for 12-unit example, you know, they'd have to supply 1 as community housing plus the cost of the 20% cost of a comparable unit. But the alternative compliance example that I gave here is that they could do 1 unit at a steeper AMI target as long as the town council was satisfied with what they proposed in their community housing plan. So if the AMI target is, you know, much lower, or they want to deed restrict a couple of the units, but maybe not at the 100% level, they want to go a little higher with some. If the overall AMI target is something acceptable to town council, that can all be worked through.
Could the same be done for the 0.8 in reverse? With AMI?
Like raise the AMI.
If you see what I mean. For the
Not
8
sure.
units. Okay, if there's 8 units.
Mhm.
And they voluntarily. Donate
Deed restrict
one.
a unit, but at a higher AMI, I see.
Yeah.
I don't see why they couldn't propose that. The way it's drafted right now is very flexible.
I'm just assuming that they would want something
Yeah.
for that.
Do you all think that that's a reasonable
Yeah,
idea?
That seems reasonable to me.
Okay. It's not gonna
Flexibility is gonna
explicitly call out all the creative ways that people can make their
Right, but that
proposals
there
work,
is-
but
As long as it can.
if they want to
Yeah,
suggest something, I'm gonna say it's better than what we get now,
Yeah.
right.
which is nothing. And I did give a major and minor subdivision example in here as well. I put them in one chart, but there are huge differences in the process, as you know. So minor review for a minor subdivision, and that's for 4 or fewer lots. And then for a major subdivision, there's the sketch plan process, the preliminary plat process, and the final plat process that are all required as part of that. So obviously the community housing would only apply to it once. Okay, just making that clear. So instead of the cost to construct a unit being used as the fee in lieu amount, this would then use the sale price of a comparable lot. So let's say all the lots are the same size, it's very easy to come up with. If the lots are different sizes, we can use comparable, comps in the area. So it's never gonna be perfectly accurate, but we can try our best.
One of the things that was part of the Tyrone, mitigation was that one of the options was you could buy a free market unit somewhere else. And
deed restricted.
deed restricted.
Yeah,
And then the reaction to that was a lot of homeowners associations disallowed that. But before they disallowed it, there's different places where, I know Brown Homestead, a friend that has one, I know there's one out at, Eider Creek. And then an interesting example is they just got an assessment of like $70,000. And so he went to the housing authority and said, well, I should be able to, add this to my, value of my property because I'm having to pay this for upkeep of the building and stuff, and they allowed it. So it was kind of you could look at it and say, oh, well, they don't want to put it on site because they don't want to, they want their place to be fancier than this. But it also allowed the units to be interspersed within the community, which is kind of a cool thing. I don't know that we even have that many options here to do that.
yeah.
But
That is one of the things that we had talked about previously, and I really like the deed restriction acquisition idea. But putting it into practice requires quite a bit because you need to make sure that the unit is comparable in some way, bless you. And usually the people are just picking up, quite old units and saying, hey, this is comparable. So there's usually like livability standards that are also adopted by the community that has a deed restriction acquisition.
well, there's more administration
Much more,
to do
yes.
that.
Yeah, because you wanna make sure that they're good windows and not paying a crazy amount for utility bills and all of these things that like would usually be listed in a livability standard. If Eva wants to take that, that'd be so great, but I don't know that I wanna put that on.
Yeah, I don't know that
That's
we need
like-
to add that at this point.
Yeah,
It just was.
Again, when we started this, it was like, let's take an incremental approach to affordable housing regulations.
Yeah,
And that's
or maybe
really
they did when that's appropriate, but I
Yeah.
get what you're saying.
It's a
Don't
really
make it
good
more
option,
I think
but if we're interested in creating more units, then
an easy way to address that is if a developer doesn't want to meet the community housing requirement within his development and chooses to buy another location, we have to approve that.
well, that's the livability standard, yeah, but you have to improve it based on something.
But it will do an inspection, both market and construction law. So we don't get aluminum windows and.
Yeah, but then it's like, we probably need that published and available somewhere, so someone's not just buying a property and be like, well, I wouldn't have bought this if it wasn't gonna meet the standard. So it's just a lot more, but I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I think it's actually a really good idea, it's just maybe. For a larger community, or like if we did it like regionally, maybe it would make sense, but. I'm
And I
not
still
sure.
like the fee in lieu to create like a housing, fund, right? So if units come up that are deed restricted.
Yeah, the
Then
town
the
could do
town
that,
could buy them.
the town could do the deed restriction acquisition.
They can use the percentage of the funds that come in to buy, the fee and lose, that's what the fee and lose for, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not off the table, it's just that maybe the town would be doing the purchasing and adding a deed restriction and reselling, like similar to what they do in Summit County.
Well, I'm always, John and I've talked about this for years, I've always been a proponent of the town. Instead of taking in some land where they can leverage that land and build it what they want. Getting 1 or 2 or 3 lots and building the housing they want and getting the grants and maybe building a project for no money than waiting on a developer to build it at the last unity build.
Just need a little money, no money.
It's possible. All right. Does anybody want me to go through any more of the lot or subdivision? Or that's pretty straightforward. You know, they could just give the town the lots.
I didn't
to
get
meet
what
the
the difference was between a minor subdivision and a major subdivision,
minors, four lots or less.
but it's still required to meet community housing. It's the same percentage.
Yeah, yep, they're all, yeah, this is
Okay.
across the board, 10% of community housing.
Okay, so there's really, meeting the community housing requirement, there's no difference between a minor subdivision.
Yeah, and there's no difference between a rental property and ownership condominium. There's no difference across the board for that. Now where there is a difference is with planned unit developments. Those have specific regulations around them to supply 25% of the housing units in them, and they need to be restricted to 120% or less. So these are standards that are already in our code. This has nothing to do with the new drafted regulations. And there's other requirements for those units. No short-term rentals shall be permitted, and that's carried through in our template deed restriction as well. And then for annexation, that's another example of where we might find an excess of the 10% requirement, because we do a negotiated annexation agreement for any annexation. That's all I have on the housing items. So thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Did the examples make sense? Do you think they would be helpful for a community outreach event of sorts?
Yeah.
Printed on boards and someone can stand there and explain
Great.
some sort of
Because the teachers had questions.
Yeah.
I find that all very confusing, I think.
Okay. I thought you were gonna say, I'm so confused. All right, well, I'm sure that they can be better, and I'm hoping that, you know, Eva's already been taking a look and helping out quite a bit with reviewing how they're drafted currently, making recommendations.
That's great.
So I think we're gonna get it into a really good spot. All right, so item number 3, are we ready to move on? Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. I think we had a great conference, everyone.
Yeah,
So I put together like a list of some of the topics that were presented.
Yeah, I'd forgotten to do it, but just as we were starting tonight, I emailed my notes, my sort of takeaways to everyone. So,
Oh, you did? Oh, okay, thank you.
sorry I didn't do this soon.
No, that's good. Do you want to read them? Yes. You don't have to. No, okay, just read them.
It's more than it would be appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has questions when. I mean, I said, remember to go back to your email that shares all the slide decks and things, so you know what I'm talking
Okay,
about.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
That's okay, cool. Everybody seemed to enjoy themselves, and I think the sessions were like very relevant to what we're working on, which is super helpful, because I did go to the National Planning Conference this year as well, which was in Denver. And I was probably one of the smallest, like representing one of the smallest communities there. There's a lot of urban issues discussed, which still really interests me, but can I apply it to Ridgway? Not really.
well, that
So,
was true when I think John and who else? Maybe you went down with Jen. Was getting us down into Colorado conferences, and even there, because so much of the development and planning is skewed toward the Front Range, and there were far less usable things on their agenda than this was. This was almost all quite interesting and quite pertinent to us. So it was great.
Do any attendees want to make any comments on what they learned, any key takeaways or topics of interest that you want to share with the group? Or
I could share that, just looking at my notes again, one of the best sessions was, zoning code updates to keep it weird. Done by Shay Coburn, former planning for Ridgway, a gal named Lucy
Mulvihill.
from Silverton, and another gal, let's see what's her name. Anyway, that was really good. And just really interesting because, you know, similar sized community doing a code update, and that was really well done. The community dialogue one was really, I thought was really relevant. There were a couple of probably 2-3 things that were important. Just the main thing that I kind of bulleted in red was again, trying to come up with some way to tax investment real estate. It gets back to what that YouTube thing that you guys were talking about earlier is all about. It's like we need to do everything we can to disincentivize investment real estate. Yeah, corporate real estate investments are going to kill us.
Well, you know, so I took what from that YouTube video, I took away that was created because of corporate. I mean, Wall Street has decided to buy single family homes. I just think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I felt like that had an impact in that. That's what resonated with me. I think I'm not against investment real estate, but buying single family homes for investment is not. You should buy an apartment complex or something. That's why God created an apartment complex. So you didn't have to manage 45 homes. Just buy one building.
So that's a good point.
Yeah. Been doing it a long time. Are you done?
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I found the session really interesting for me. I've been to another one with John 6 or 8 years ago that was more affordable housing, which I really enjoyed. They talked about density and setbacks and parking, and I really enjoyed that one. This one, I was very impressed, but not in a positive way. I was just shocked that I think Glenwood quadrupled their density, got no results. I mean, that just shocked me. That they said a single family lot in Glenwood Springs would now be allowed to have 4 units. You'd have to compile a building code. You could have 2 or 3 ADUs and turn them into, and they saw no increase in net dwellings.
I mean, we allow duplexes on every single family lot, and we're still getting building permits for single family homes.
I know, that's
on those lots, like,
shocked me.
that's,
Just shocked me.
Yep.
And so my takeaway was it's hard to create density, but I thought it was simple. I thought by changing the zoning would be, I thought by Ridgway doubling its density would create a whole bunch of housing. And after attending the seminar, I didn't find that to be true. And that
or it
shocked
happens
me.
very slowly.
Well, and I think the problem in Richmond right now is simply the cost and the interest rates. Like, people aren't that wealthy that they're just like, oh, sweet, we're allowed to build an ADU, let's do it. You know, like,
Well,
will it even pay the full mortgage? You know, what do you benefit from that? Yeah.
Speaking of the ADUs, that presentation of ADUs and incentivizing ADUs is a good way, it appeared, to get that density. And I think you were at that, and so I won't.
Yeah, I mean, there's an ADU grant specifically
Yeah.
created to help incentivize ADU development.
But I think I attended that session there too, but they said that it hadn't created any additional ADUs.
In Glenwood,
I think it was either Glenwood or Silverton, and I get those two confused, but it was one of those two. I mean, I agree with what Michelle said. I mean, my opinion is housing demand's gonna go up because interest rates are coming down, but the cost of housing is not gonna, especially with the tariffs.
Right.
So,
Can go up, yes.
so affordability might come down because of interest rates, but 2x4s and sheet rock aren't. So the affordability is gonna continue to be.
$500 a square foot.
Yes.
You want me to show those pictures that you sent, Pam, or?
Yeah, I'll
You wanna
start
talk
with
about
that. I went to the one on Silverton also. And they tried 3 approaches when they asked their community, you know, how do you want us to go about this? So their first 2, maximum floor area, square foot, and a per lot size. Residents didn't like that. Then they tried floor to area ratio, but residents didn't like that. They ended up with a maximum building's footprint of 2,500 square feet, even for a single family dwelling or a duplex. So they were saying, we don't want mega mansions. We don't want McDonald's McMansions in our town. So they controlled it that way, which also disincentivizes, you know, just the big single family house. I thought that was interesting. I like the way they have taken their historic landmark requirements and their historic district, town, and area, and they've done overlays to try and, you know, make everything fit, which I thought was interesting. They made a couple really good comments that I wrote down. First, they have 720 year-round residents, and they have 1 million visitors a year. And I've lived in places like that with bigger numbers, and it's overwhelming. I think we're lucky that we don't have that. One of the comments they made was people know what they don't want, but they have trouble articulating what they do want. And I think that's really important when we come to these presentations.
Yeah.
It's like, everybody's like, oh, you know, you gotta make it cheaper. And it's like, well, we can't. You know, it's $500 a square foot. We have no control over that. But in there,
$500 a square foot plus land.
yeah. They said educate before you ask for input. And this may apply to when we work on stuff in next year, the master plan. Educate before you ask for input. Turn feelings into measurable standards. And that's always a challenging one because people know they feel it comes out of their gut. But it's like, well, how do you measure that? And then they kind of go, I don't know. And that local stories from residents are relatable. And I just thought those were all really good points from Silverton, which we have more in common with than Glenwood. But I agree, it was fun to hear them, and it was fun to see what they had to do.
My takeaway was that they did a whole lot to create more density and more units, and they haven't been successful. Yet.
In Glenwood.
Yeah, well, and so.
No, Silverton hasn't had it in place long enough to have it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not.
But I really liked that the community said, that's the biggest house we want here.
Yeah.
In order to maintain their historic ambiance.
Well, 2,500 square foot footprint, 2 stories is a big house.
Oh, plenty for a full family, but that was big enough,
Yeah, it's not gonna allow,
a 5,000 square foot house.
well, at 2,500 footprint, 2 stories.
5 dollars, it would be 5,000. Yeah.
I think,
Yes.
Now, they do,
Yeah.
what the board's appointment,
okay,
but they don't allow
2-story.
10,000.
no. Okay, so then I also went on a tour of Fruta for their affordable housing. This was one example of an apartment building they did. And there's more coming in this open space in front. The apartment building there was just first phase. So they're trying to do a lot of things in Fruta. I was actually really impressed with their planner. I can't remember his name, but what's that?
That sign.
I pulled up a different picture. Sorry.
He is all in on going for every penny, every square inch of land, everything they can do to keep Fruta affordable. And it was interesting. I haven't been to Fruta in many years. And I had no idea how much it grew. So I was kind of blown away. So this is a development that the town built. And it's 100% rental units. They use the LIHTC program. So it includes a clubhouse, a playground, 30 units between 100% AMI and 140% AMI. The average income in Fruita is $60,000. The entire unit development is powered by solar. It cost them $22.5 million to build.
How many units?
30, I think. So for a 1-bedroom at 30% AMI rent is $472 and 60% rent is $1,000.46. It goes all the way up to a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or a 3-bedroom. It includes a clubhouse, a garden for vegetables, if people want to grow things, a dog park, and a playground. And they have pulled this off, and then we were able to go in 1 or 2 of the units. They're very, very narrow. They are skinny little things, but a family with 1 or 2 kids could live there. Yeah, very skinny, yeah. The one we went in was 2 bedrooms. They're both upstairs, 1 shared bathroom. There's a powder room downstairs. Walk in, it's kitchen, living room.
Just going back to your original, $22 million.
Yeah.
Or 30 units.
Yeah.
I'm like 800,000 per. Where did they get that?
I don't know all of it. I don't know if they got grants.
I can reach out to the planner and ask them.
Yeah.
He was amazing. A really sharp guy.
Yeah, maybe it's just someone I need to know anyway.
Well, and then at the end of the tour, there was this development, there was another one, and then at the end, they took us to 2 more empty lots they're going after. Near the Fruita exit that on the west side of the highway. Over by where the Chamber and the McDonald's and a couple of those places are on your way up to the monument. They had a couple pieces of land. They're in kind of semi-commercial zones. They weren't gorgeous, whereas this was really beautiful. The other unit or place they showed us, it's an old building in Fruita. It started out as kind of labor housing, and then it became a nursing home. And now they've gotten, I don't know if the hospital donated the land or if there was some very inexpensive donation process, whatever, purchase. I think they got it for nothing. So they're raising the building completely. It was old, it has asbestos, it has terrible plumbing, it's not livable. So they're raising it to the foundation, but the foundation's good enough that they're building right off the foundation. And they're gonna put small units in here. It was impressive, but it's still in the cleaning up the asbestos phase, so we weren't allowed inside. But what they've got planned is pretty ambitious. I was pretty impressed. I'm glad I went on that tour. I saw a lot of different ideas that they're incorporating.
It's kind of interesting. Bill and I went up to the other end of the valley to Paradise. Palisades, and they're not growing. They're losing from
Yeah.
And I felt very impressed by the fact that they were losing. I find it a very attractive town.
Yeah.
And the fact that fruit is growing in Palisades is not as confusing to me.
Well, because Fruita started out as, ranch land and desert, and it was the more affordable end of the Grand Valley. And now that it's mountain biking mecca and it's growing culture and other things, it's growing and getting more expensive. Yes, Fruita is more similar, yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, I thought the tour was impressive.
Now, I did a tour of Grand Junction's affordable housing. And I was blown away by how much there is there.
Yeah.
And how they've even dealt with something that we don't have to deal with, which is a homeless population. But but this woman, their housing managers, I think it's Mesa County. It may just be Grand Junction, but her name is Ashley Chambers. She had an amazing amount of information. I have just a little handout that she gave us, which is essentially a stripped down housing needs assessment, but it's very they were shockingly forward thinking. And in terms of just numbers of units, and once again, I don't know what the financing was for all these places, but there are several hundred affordable housing unit developments. I mean, it really is shocking. So I was highly impressed with Grand Junction's affordable systems, for what it's worth. The other thing that was interesting to me was the wildfire codes that we will be adopting this year. It's mandatory this year, and just how that might affect our landscaping requirements, etc. That was definitely interesting, and the water thing that Jack and I. It's why Jack and I were in Palisade. Was to tour their water processing system, and I would love to get a tour of our water system.
You want to call President? Or
Pardon?
you want to call President?
I'm
trying.
sure. But if anybody else is interested, I think I was standing there and I was thinking, I don't, other than and up at the ranch, where the lake Otonawanda is, a few times a month. But other than that, I am woefully uninformed about the nuts and bolts of our water.
I find it, I mean, the lake of where it ends.
Exactly. Yes. Well, I keep track for the owner. I keep track of the lake and the incoming water and in the level otherwise. But I would love to know more about our water.
I really had this idea when the event happened, and I've been dragging my feet, so I feel like I'm late. I wanted to see the destruction and then the reconstruction. But
the other thing about the water issue in Palisade has their own water treatment facility and their own source of water, but it's very close to the source of water for the town of Grand Junction. What they have is let's just say Tri-County water is around us, sort of above us and around us. But what they have in conjunction with Grand Junction is an interconnect possibility as a backup in both directions. And I found that fairly interesting. And I'm not sure what our possible relationship with Tri-County could be as a as a potential interconnect as a backup for us.
Well,
No.
well. It's too in the weeds for this discussion, that's for sure.
Mhm.
We had an interconnect, we have emergency interconnect.
Good.
But, and I'll just say, they would probably love to buy our water system and take it over. I don't think that's.
Yeah, no, that's not, yeah, that didn't occur to me. What did occur to me, and is that I didn't know whether we did have an interconnect as a backup. And that's
Just as an emergency.
That's great.
That's great. I didn't know that either.
Perfect.
I met with the manager of Tri-County today for 3 hours and they're very good.
Very good. That was it.
Thank you all for sharing. Anything else related to this topic?
What struck you most?
One of the things, and I actually am kind of getting to it in this next part of my presentation, is sort of this state push to like integrate all of these different topics through like a strategic planning lens. Obviously, a lot of things get siloed, but like recently they've been, you know, making us include a water supply element in the housing needs assessment. Whereas before, water was probably not top of mind. But obviously it's very important to future development. So I think the state, from all of the things I can gather, and what I'm about to talk about in the next few slides is, trying to figure out how all the systems connect, how it can improve life for residents in communities of any size, by strategically growing, because it costs more to drive to, you know, many miles to the grocery store than if you have a local grocery store and then some transit options, and you try to like do infill development around those things. You know, work with what infrastructure you have and grow in a very strategic way. That was one of my takeaways. Some of the like civic engagement stuff is really helpful for me. I just like to see how other communities do it. You know, when I came on, I think I made it clear that like with any process or any like regulation being put into place, it's good to have some community awareness. And obviously Ridgway is a very involved community when it's topics that are important to them. But it's really important for a lot of different topics because they all connect again.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that was interesting was just trying to measure your successes. Like I have this measures of success piece here, and like start by establishing your baseline and coming up with ways to measure your progress. That's something that's also very important to try to build into how planning works here and all of our different programs that are going on. So, yeah, lots of good takeaways. I think it was very successful.
I'm up for Keystone.
Keystone,
That's the next one.
that's the next what? Conference. Colorado APA conference. Okay, cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. Ready for item number 4, Michelle? Okay, sorry, this is going kind of long. I can definitely shrink this part of my presentation. But it's basically touching on this long range planning, a couple of kind of conceptual things. We have this new report. It's the Colorado Statewide Strategic Growth Report. And it was published October 31st. It's 200 something pages, but there is a shorter executive summary. that are.
Can't read that.
Okay, both are linked in your packet, or, you know, if you go to the Dropbox, you can actually just click the links to access either of those documents. Again, this is like, the state is publishing materials on how all of these different pieces are interconnected. And then I'm just gonna read this little piece from the report. So in the last 5 years, the state has moved toward even more integration of growth strategies, housing, and transportation. Building on statewide greenhouse gas reduction targets set in 2019, implementation steps like the greenhouse gas roadmap have moved forward key goals around climate change. In 2022, voters passed Proposition 123, establishing a permanent affordable housing fund, linking state resources to local commitments for increased housing production. In 2024, the Colorado General Assembly adopted a package of housing and land use bills designed to address housing affordability, support transit-oriented communities, and promote strategic growth. New laws range from requiring certain local governments to plan for higher density housing near transit, prohibiting residential occupancy limits based on familial relationships, eliminating minimum parking requirements for certain multifamily and adaptive reuse projects in transit service areas, and requiring some jurisdictions to allow at least one accessory dwelling unit where single family residences are allowed. So the point here is there's a lot more information now that is really helpful, and it's kind of bringing all these state policies together, seeing how they work together. And my main point of bringing this up is that we should do the same on a local level, and especially with the master plan update coming up. So I'll just go over a couple of things if you don't mind, or I can go through this quickly. A lot of the things that they point out in here have to do with like place types and patterns of community development. So recognizing what these patterns are, where they exist, mapping them out, and labeling them and explaining them is something that they do really well in both the executive summary and so I included here the place types that we see in Ridgway: large lot dispersed residential places around the edges, and then suburban places in some of the neighborhoods, traditional neighborhoods in the core of town, and our downtown area, although small, matches this place type, how they explain it. So one of the things with the strategic growth, like outlook, I guess, is they're identifying how these patterns are actually affecting various things like greenhouse gas emissions, what it costs for households to operate and continue existing in some of the remote locations. It's really expensive, as you can see here. And it gets much more affordable as you go into like the downtown core. And then pricing also can be really dramatically different based on the pattern of development. So I don't need to go too far into this, but the thought is that strategic growth will reduce costs for infrastructure and for public services, reduce household expenses. And the report does a really good job of explaining that strategic growth does not mean stopping growth, but thoughtfully directing it. And there's a lot of things in here that Ridgway is already working on. So.
Have you read the whole thing?
No. No. I read the executive summary and scanned the 200-page document, read the parts that were interesting, and do plan to read the whole thing eventually. It's 200 pages.
Yeah, the summary, good, it's like what?
I think it's like 30 pages. Yeah, I think it's like 35 pages. But we did it. So it wasn't painful. There's a lot of good graphics and things that are.
Exactly.
It's like
There's
yeah.
about 10 pages of action.
Yes, it's a good quick read. Anyway, so there's a couple of also just, let's look at this really, really quickly. There's like a potential outcome, so like a scenario planning aspect to this. There's like the business as usual scenario, and then they do a strategic growth scenario. And they talk about all the benefits of the strategic growth scenario because business as usual is not sustainable. So, so scenario planning is really important, and that's another thing that I want to like hopefully bring into the master planning process. Master plan update. My main point is there's a lot of work that went into this. If you're interested in reading the report, start with the executive summary so you don't get overwhelmed. But you can see all these great professionals put a lot of work into it. And I think it's a really, really helpful piece of information, a really good publication. This is the last
Moving
thing
right along.
related to long range planning, the 2026 master plan update. So we talked about, we did the review process from like March to June of this year. So we laid a lot of groundwork for this. I want us to touch base a little bit on the timeline. So I would kind of propose a similar approach to what we did for the housing needs assessment, where we have a steering committee. We conduct stakeholder interviews. There's various milestones that would like be part of the overall draft, not like standalone documents or whatever.
Are we hiring consultants to put this together?
Yes. So we hopefully will have that $50,000 to use toward this process.
Does Points Consulting do this kind of work?
They're economists, they're not planners, so no, I don't think they would. I don't think they'd take this on. I don't think they even really have planning staff to do it. I mean, they could be a sub-consultant to a planning consultant potentially to like help with the housing element. Because the housing element is required as part of this. Or they can use what Points has already produced with the housing needs assessment. So there's a lot of more up-to-date information related to housing that we can pull from them. So basically on this timeline, I have it spanning the whole year. And we've already done so much preliminary work to identify what needs to be updated or approved. I could see this timeline shrinking, but I think it's really important to do a lot of community outreach. So that's why I have it spanning the whole year, because I think that might be more realistic. And I think that is the piece that we didn't really need to do with the housing needs assessment that would be laid on really thick for this particular update. So I have some dates up here. I just want to see how you all are feeling about the 2026 work plan, and we will talk about it more with TJ and his team. He was planning on doing like a full 2026 work plan session with you all in January. If we can do it in December, maybe we'll consider doing that. I'll ask TJ about that. Just to kind of, we have a lot of things going on in January, but
Sounds good.
Any thoughts or questions about this? Okay. Cool.
I think it's interesting that the master plan falls to planning, I guess, because it has plan in it.
It's a planning commission's duty.
actually a planning commission.
But planners plan.
Yes.
We don't have to, it's not a recommendation at council. We actually adopt it.
Oh, nice.
I skipped some pages that talk about the water supply element, and there's like, you know, the state requirements, which we went over all of it before. I was gonna give you a reminder, but we don't need to do that tonight. Okay. Are we on to item number 5, Chair?
Moving right along.
She and the dog is just,
They're just cuddling.
they're just kind of.
I couldn't get her to, I had to get her to stop pacing. It's maddening. Okay, I'm looking for approval of the October meeting minutes. Thank you.
We have a modification.
Yeah.
Sorry to say, just a slight modification. Julie has noticed when the packet got put together that there's a little bit of incorrect information on the who's in attendance or something like that.
Right. I keep wanting to leave Pam off, and you were here.
Sorry, Pam.
Again?
It's funny, yeah, I didn't notice that. It says Commissioners Nelson, Westmeyer, Clark, and Montague were attendance, and then it says Nelson. and
Yeah.
Ketchum. So I will amend my motion to say that Commissioner Oyster was in attendance.
Yes.
I'll second the modified motion.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here.
Thank you. Jack is abstaining, no one is opposed.
Good.
Other business, I was wondering if we're going to put out a, I don't know what it's called.
Call for a new member.
Yeah, a new member. And then my other question on that was, I know that John had mentioned at some point that council had some questions about the length of our terms and about John solely appointing them, but I don't know that anything has been formalized with them.
I don't know either. Go ahead.
I have just a little bit. I was asked to do research on that and kind of gave, I think I told you all what the outcome of that research was. It wasn't like a super formal thing. It might have just been an update. But 3-year terms are pretty common along the western slope. 6 years is pretty long when comparing it to, I don't have like the community is listed with the.
I think we agreed that 6 seems extreme.
My guess is 6 was from the days when you couldn't get anyone to join.
Right.
So got someone you
Put
got
it down
them.
at 400 people.
Right.
So the research was done and I told that to Preston, and so I haven't heard on any direction since.
It hasn't.
Hasn't come up.
The other question was whether, when someone's term comes up, should it be opened up to other people to apply? And then that's another thing that the council needs to talk about. As far as the mayor being the sort of pointer, that's in the charge, so the mayor charter to change.
Which is a vote?
Okay.
Yeah, so it sounds like nothing's changed. We're gonna move forward the way it is until we're told that something's changing.
Sure.
Right? I mean, it's not our job to continually ask when are you guys gonna change it? Like, let us know when you change it.
Yeah, I don't know what the
You like that?
impetus for wanting to change it is, so I don't know if there's
It
any.
just came up when Jack was.
When it was Jack's fault.
Always.
So often.
So you'll put
So
out,
I'm kind of waiting to know what,
I think the next thing to do is to put out what's it called, John?
Request for an application.
Yeah, a request for applications with an appropriate deadline.
Can we
Yeah, I
make
think
a
it's-
poster at Friday nights? Or Thursday nights,
tomorrow, yeah.
we just make a poster?
I
One of the things,
don't think we need a poster. I think we just need to post it as
okay,
a normal notice.
the only reason I may bring it up is I would love to start bringing younger people onto our commission. We've got
The way to do
a,
that is to reach out to young
Yeah.
people, you know.
and there's one I'll call, we just need to start growing our own replacements.
Yeah.
And get them engaged in the future of this town.
Drag a horse to water, but you can't.
I know,
As you can see,
yeah, I know.
Well, there wasn't anything contentious on the agenda.
Well, yeah,
Exactly, forgot the call.
so you're good with the direction on that?
Yes. And I think it's,
It's actually a
Gonna
tough
be-
selection, but it's.
I think it's supposed to get posted for like a month or so, so. I don't know if that's perfectly right, but
Do we know what our Christmas party is?
What do you mean?
That's what I really wanna know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
second Saturday of December, it's like mid-December. You didn't get any email about it?
I'll have to check.
Pam,
Has everybody?
sent out an email on. that.
Yeah, we got an email about
December
that.
13th.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Maybe
can
send out an
consider
email to
extending the
everybody.
deadline because we're going into the holiday season.
Sure, I'll talk to Preston about it and,
Maybe till January,
hardly hurt to do, what's the council meeting in January?
What's
You
what's
have
the
it,
Christmas
Matt.
board?
It's a Saturday.
The 13th, December 13th, December 13th, Christmas
Are you
party.
gonna be there this year, Jack? I think you forgot last
You
year.
just rented it.
I was there last year.
No, you
I'm there.
We all
forgot.
sat together.
No one's there.
Oh.
I'm gonna have to fly in.
You were there.
The January council meeting is the 14th, so we might say, I'll talk to Preston, I might
like the Friday before.
suggest the Friday. Maybe the first. I'll talk to Preston.
Great.
So does anyone else have anything? Did Pam say there's an upcoming planning workshop in Keystone?
That's next year's state.
Yeah,
meeting.
not soon.
Okay, you'll keep us,
That's part of the planning thing. They said-
It's the American Planning Association's Colorado chapter.
So it's next year's version that they want to.
Yes, the thing that we went to this year was unusual and unusual timing because the National Planning Conference was hosted in Denver in the spring. So it screwed up like the normal state planning conference, and so the Western Slope specific one was kind of thrown together. But it was, yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
Well, and, because they said the next one's at Keystone, and then after that, it goes back to the Front Range and it's in Colorado Springs. It's like, well,
Yeah,
that's too far.
okay, anybody got anything else? What's the? 7, we got updates from planning staff, updates from planning commission members, and then. We have adjournment, so does anyone else have anything?
Now that I sit on the.
Where's my hammer?
Get it.
right.
Adjourn.
Thanks, everybody.
thank you, everyone.
It's only 7:15, it feels so late. I know, it's time, Jim, ready.
It's been dark so long.